as you've seen on the channel, I've reviewed a couple of watches recently from a watch customizer called IFL Watches, and wow, there's been some amazing models that I've got to review. But I thought it'd be very interesting to hear from the founders of IFL Watches, so I'm very grateful to have Ikrar join us today. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be here. And seeing you live, I've only seen you on YouTube.
It's such an interesting concept, I think. How did you get involved in customizing this? Were you always a watch fan, or did you come at it from the sort of the creative, artistic side? How did the company start?
I've been a watch guy for now probably a decade and then some. Approximately 10 years ago, I started an Instagram page called I Fucking Love Watches. We just recently broke 1 million followers there. So it's more like a blog that blogs about watches. That was literally where I started, and I just did it as a hobby. I used to work as a salesman back in the days. Did that for 4 or 5 years, and it grew massively. That was when Instagram was a different beast as well. So it grew massively, and it started to have ad revenue, basically. It came to a level where that was my full-time job for some time. And then I had a stint. I got a job at a massive brand, Jacob & Co. So I started there as their head of social and was doing that for approximately a year. And at the same time, I had this vision, I had this goal to start something of my own in the world of online commerce, so to say. And that's when, around 2019, when IFL Watches took form. We started with different type of watch accessories initially, and then we started customizing one watch, customizing two watches, customizing three watches. And we saw the appetite for our type of take, our type of design on the watches, and it took off from there, basically.
Well, I don't need to ask you what the acronym stands for then.
You got that one now.
Yeah, you got that one. Jacob & Co. is quite an interesting path, isn't it? Because they don't make it onto the radar, I think, of a lot of YouTubers, Jacob & Co., because you think of them as only being extremely expensive, highly complicated watches, but somebody's buying them because I think they moved up a couple of points in the rankings, that JP Morgan chart. They must be selling a lot more watches than I think most people think they are, perhaps.
Yeah. That world is just an absurd world when you see those type of watches, the craftsmanship, the designs. I mean, I don't know where do you start with a brand like that. It's just unbelievable. The company per se, also led by the dad, it's run like a family business. We're still working together. We've had a great relationship over the years as well.
Where did the idea come from to start painting the dial of a watch? Because I only know one other person that does this. What was the thought process between taking a brand new watch, which most of us probably wouldn't dismantle, but you take it apart and then you add this? Well, first of all, it started with patterns. Now you've got to these very intricate artwork on the dial.
First watch that we did that in a collaboration with the dial artist back in the days. So he was doing it for us, basically. He doesn't live in Sweden. And then he came on board and worked with us on multiple watch releases and so on. And then he wanted to stay in Scotland, basically. We're a Swedish company. Nowadays, we have our own in-house design team. We have our own artists, and we have our own processes when we design different watches. I like to evoke emotions with the type of art that we do, something that is striking, that is cool. That's always our starting point. Is this something we would like ourselves? That's our starting point when we design something, and that we release to the public. And then obviously we do custom work for a lot of B2B. You can have a company that they can reach out to us and say, hey guys, we're 25 employees or 50 employees, and we would like to design a watch for everybody in the team and so on. So we started doing that last year, and it's been very fruitful. And that's also a lot of fun because you get to design certain watches that you would never have designed otherwise.
How does it go from concept to finished watch? Do you collaborate with the end artist that's going to paint the dial on the design, or do you have like a team that comes up with the design? And I only ask because the three that I've done, they've been completely different. We had that beautiful ocean scene that was painted on the G-Shock, which still amazes me when I look at the macro shots. The Space Surfer, and then recent one with the Spitfire. The ocean scene was more of a illustration type style. The Space Surfer was obviously more like comic book style, and then the Spitfire one was more of a realistic, as realistic as you can get at that size of a Spitfire. So how's the whole process work?
It really comes down to the team. All of the artists that designed and painted these watches that you mentioned, and all of our watches, we sit in the same building. They're literally 2 doors away. What we do is basically that we have our design meetings and we come up with different ideas. Both me and my partner Jimmy, we love to design, we love to create. We wouldn't be able to paint those type of things on the dials ourselves. Hence why we also have a artist team that when we sit and design, we all sit together and illustrate and design and come up with these different ideas. And we want to always test what the market likes. We always like to do things that we ourselves would appreciate to see. And then the market is going to give us their feedback. That's the beauty of what we do. So the designing aspect is all from here within, unless it's a bespoke project for another company where they come in and say, we would like to have X, Y, and Z. Then it's their design basically that we just help them with.
So whenever I do these, I invariably get comments about how much these retail for. And I was going to try and beat you up a bit on that, but it's hard to do because they sell out within a day. I think the Spitfire was a day, the Ocean Scene, that was it might have been 1 or 2 days, and the similar with the Space Surface. Can you just talk through how many hours are actually spent on the dial and how the ultimate cost is decided? Because typically the base watches are in the 200 to 400 range, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's an extremely valid point, and I completely understand that from a consumer standpoint. I mean, in the end of the day, we ourselves are also consumers. So I think about these type of things when I consume, when I purchase things as well. Obviously, there needs to be a clear relation between price and product. And that's why we need to be able to communicate, like, what is it that is our product and why is it priced the way it is? If we could sell the watch for half that price and be a running business where we can pay salaries and keep the lights on, lovely. That would be tremendous. But the reality is that it takes such a long time to create these designs. I would say the hardest part, the most time-consuming part, is actually creating a design. Because I can briefly explain our design process a little bit, is that we set the scene first that we would like to achieve. We set that scene just on a round piece of paper, draw a circle, you set a scene. Now, when you set that initial scene, it looks beautiful. And then you come to the actual watch that you're going to do this on. And then you're met with all these different obstacles depending on the watch. Indexes, dials, surfaces, colors that you need to navigate depending on the actual dial design and depending on the actual watch, what needs to happen here, the positioning of the different elements, how do we exactly do that? Put it inside the watch, see it as a final product. Do we like it? Is there a color that we don't like? Redo this process. Sometimes we do a design 3-4 times before we're really happy with how the design comes out. That's when we present it to the market. So just looking from the outside, it might look easy, quote unquote, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work that we put behind.
When the artist sits down, brush in hand, what type of paints are they using, and how long does it actually take to paint one of the dials?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So that depends a little bit from dial to dial, but a lot of the dials that we work with today, we use enamel paints. Enamel paints are extremely thick. There is certain processes we need to do with the actual paint to be able to use it properly. And that is something that we have experimented with throughout time to perfect it, basically. But it's always a challenge. And then you have a curing period, something that could be perceived pretty simple by just looking at the design, like the emoji concept that we did, a couple of emojis on a Tissot dial. That was by far the most difficult design we've done. And when you look at the watch, you would say it's the other way around. This looks pretty easy and straightforward. But that's the issue when you do like these type of colors, when there are a lot of bright colors, etc. You need to work with so many layers. So a dial can take a lot of time. You need to paint it once, wait till it cures, next day, wait, next day. So we, depending on the project, depending on the complexity of the dial, we work very differently. Sometimes we can start a batch of 10 dials as an example, and then you just, one artist works their first layer, needs to put it away till the next day, second layer, put it away, third layer, and so forth. So it's very different depending on the actual design and what we're trying to achieve.
So it's a multi-day process then? Yeah, it's the same. Is it the same artist that works on each dial, or is it the sort of a production line?
The same artist starts and finish generally. Sometimes we do have, depending on the workflow, etc. If we're in we need to speed things up. One can set the layer, the other one can help up with some other stuff, etc. Today we have 4 artists, so everybody's capable of their own thing, and so we try to manage that as well. That's a task on its own too.
It's no small feat taking these sometimes high-end watches like the Oris, also the G-Shocks. You're having to also take them apart and make sure they're reassembled. Do you buy them through a third party where they come disassembled, or do you have watchmakers in-house that do that?
We have watchmakers in-house. So that's the beauty of what we've been able to achieve and build as a business as well, is that we have everything in-house. So we literally would everything from designing the actual outer box, the actual packaging, we design it in here. The watch is taken apart in here. The watch is painted, designed in here. The watch is photographed and videographed in here. So everything happens within our doors, basically. So we make sure that we control the quality all the way through. That's the importance of it.
I've got to ask this. You don't necessarily have to answer for sure, but I think a question that I'm sure the audience is going to be wondering is, what do the brands think about you doing this to their watches? Most brands are quite precious about their designs, aren't they? And I mean, how do the brands feel? Can you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have tremendous relationships with some of the brands that we work with. Some of the brands that we work with, we buy directly from their distribution. We've been able to show a track record over a period of time, and we do things with admiration and respect, and we hold a high quality standard. So all of those things combined, I think we've been able to be quite friendly with some of the brands that we sell. Other brands, if they have an issue with us, what we do is basically that we sell the original watch on our website, and the customer can buy the original watch and order a design on it. So that's basically how it works. A lot of the brands that we work with, tremendous relationship. Quite frankly, surprised as well. Like, we have certain brands that extremely friendly with us, helpful, and helps us with buying our watches and so on.
That was really cool and very interesting. I've really enjoyed the 3 that you very kindly sent me over for review. I think I'm amazed how they come to life under the macro. It's not just once you get really close up, you can tell just what a skilled artist has painted this. So I've been in awe of the last 3 that you sent me with just the artistry.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Let us know if you've got any questions in the comments section down below. Kara, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure. Take care, guys.
See you next time on Casual Watch Reviews. Thanks, guys. Bye.